Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have our breakdown of the main slate on FanDuel for the NFL for Week 4. So we got a lot of good options at each position here, and hopefully enough value that you can fill out the lineup very well. So I'm going to go ahead and start with quarterbacks. So we're going to start with Josh Allen for Buffalo. This game should be pretty high scoring. Uh, Baltimore's defense hasn't been that great, and he's averaging almost 30 fantasy points a game, and so I really like him in this particular matchup. Lamar Jackson, obviously, on the other side of this, Buffalo's defense has been pretty good, but he's been extremely good the last two games, averaging 40 fantasy points in the second two games of the season, and he has a lot of upside on this particular slate. Then Jalen Hurts as well. I've actually rostered Jalen Hurts all three games so far this season, and he's done very well, averaging about 27 to 30 fantasy points each game. And I really like him in this matchup again against Jacksonville, who is a pretty good defensive team, but they're not great against their pass, so I really like him in this matchup. Then Herbert. He's averaging 20 fantasy points so far this season. He's got a really nice plus matchup here against Houston, so he's a little bit of a cheaper option if you don't want to pay up for Allen, Hurts, or Jackson. And then a real value option is Mariota for Atlanta against Cleveland. He's been pretty good about getting 15 to 20 fantasy points so far this season. I look for him to have a similar output again, but he actually has a little bit better matchup than he's had the first few games of the season. At running back, we have some really good options here. McCaffrey, obviously, if he plays, he's going to be a top option. Arizona's not very good defensively, and he'll have some upside in this matchup. And he has only had one touchdown so far, so if he can score a touchdown and get the 100 yards, then he'll definitely pay off. Barkley, even though he had 1 week where he wasn't particularly great, only 10 fantasy points, the other 2 weeks he's been really good. And this is a nice low plus matchup for him against the Chicago Bears. And they're a bit weaker against the rush than they are against the pass, so I like him in this situation. Plus, the Giants, they tend to keep the ball on the ground a lot. Then we're going to look at Jonathan Taylor for Indiana against Tennessee. Tennessee's defense really hasn't been able to get it together yet. Now, he is a little bit boom or bust so far this season, but he's going to get the opportunities, and he'll have some targets and stuff like that, too, through the air, which give him some opportunity. Then Jamal Williams for Detroit against Seattle. Seattle's not proven that they are as good defensively as they've been in the past, and he's had some pretty good games, having 2 touchdowns in 2 of the 3 games each. If he can get 2 touchdowns again, then he'll definitely pay off here, and he's definitely capable of doing it on this particular games. Josh Jacobs, obviously he's pretty inexpensive here, and he's got a tough matchup, but he has got a touchdown potential. He hasn't gotten one yet this season. Obviously, the Raiders do throw the ball quite a bit, but he might. I feel like that this game is going to be, he's going to have to get a touchdown in order for them to have a chance to win. And then Austin Eckler for the Chargers. He's in a pretty good spot here. He hasn't been particularly great so far this season, but they're going to have to rely on him more as they continue to go through this season in order to get some wins. And so you definitely got to get him, if he can have a big game for a change, then he'll definitely pay off in this particular situation. At wide receiver, we have Stephon Diggs first. Obviously, the top guy for Josh Allen, and he's going to have a big game here probably. I look for him to score in the 20s on this particular matchup, and I really do like him in this situation. CeeDee Lamb is in a great price for $6,800, and he's the top wide receiver right now for Dallas's rookie young quarterback, and so I really like him. And Washington's defense against the pass is pretty terrible, and so he should be a favorite to get a touchdown and probably 100 plus yards. Then we're going to look at Devontae Adams, obviously a good option against Denver here for Las Vegas. Now, 2 teams the last 2 weeks have really tried to stop him, and to some degree they have, but he still got a touchdown in 2 of those games, all 3 games, this season. I look for him to get another one this week. Then Braden Cooks for Houston. He looks like a really solid option this week against the Chargers. Even though he's been kind of hit or miss so far this season. He's in a plus matchup here, and I like his potential in this particular matchup. Then Drake London for Atlanta. He's been really good so far this season. 9, 20, and 12 fantasy points. He's got touchdown potential in this one against Cleveland, who's not very good against the pass. Then we've got A.J. Brown Brown. For Philadelphia, I really like him. I've actually rostered him all 3 weeks, and he's paid off for the most part. We do need him to get a touchdown probably to really pay off as his prices come up some, but overall I still like him in this matchup. And then Iman Ross St. Brown. Now this is saying out, so he may actually not be playing. Yep, he's not playing, so never mind him. Michael Pittman. For Indiana. He looks like a really great option this week. In the first 2 weeks he's played, he had 22 and 11 fantasy points. He's definitely going to get plenty of targets in this one, and I really like him in this situation. Deontay Johnson for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He looks pretty good in this matchup in a terrible Jets team. He should have an opportunity to score a touchdown in this one. He hasn't had one yet this season, but he's getting yards and targets, and it's just a matter of time. He has missed on some targets though, so we do have to keep that in mind. And then Cortland Sutton, he is the top option for Russell Wilson right now. He's getting around 10 targets a game, and if he can get those targets, then he'll pay off in this particular match against Las Vegas, who are going to try to, there's going to be more opportunities, I think, in that game because Vegas tends to go a little faster, tempo. At tight end, we have Mark Andrews for Baltimore. Now, he's definitely been super solid so far this season, and I look for him to have another opportunity to be really good. Buffalo's defense against the pass is a little bit better, but he's still a good safety valve for Jackson. Kyle Pitts is another guy that I think is in a pretty decent spot here. He doesn't really get a ton of targets, but if he does, if he manages to get some in this game, then he'll definitely pay off quite a bit, and his price is pretty inexpensive. Darren Waller has been pretty good so far this season. He's had 2 good games and 1 not-so-great game, but in this particular game, they're going to have more opportunities to throw the ball, and so I look for him to have a solid game on this slate. Go-Dirt for Philadelphia has been surprisingly good so far this season. Not going to blow you away with a 30-point game or something because he doesn't get enough targets, but he can get a touchdown, and if he can do that, he'll definitely score some points. And then Gerald Everett for the Chargers. He's got some upside in this one against Houston, and he's had 2 out of 3 games where he's scored at least 10 fantasy points, and I think he can do that in this particular matchup. From the defensive side of the perspective, the Steelers are going to be a top option here. They're playing against the Jets, and the Jets are terrible, and the Steelers showed in the first week that they can score pretty good points, and I look for them to be able to do that again in this easier matchup against the Jets. The Packers are in a good spot here against Green Bay, who hasn't been, against New England, who's actually given defense a lot of points so far this season, and so I look for them to try to take advantage. They're a pretty solid defensive team as overall. The Cowboys look really solid against Washington, who has given up some points as well. And Dallas has done pretty decent so far this season, just on the points perspective. And then finally, the Chicago Bears against the Giants. Now, obviously, they're going to have to deal with what's his name, Barkley, but overall, they still have a pretty good defense, and they still have the opportunity to score some points in this particular matchup. With that said, I think we have a really solid slate here. A lot of good players available, a lot of value available. It should be pretty easy to develop some lines on this particular slate. Nobody seems too overpriced. There's a couple guys that seem a little bit underpriced, but not too much. It's a pretty balanced slate. So overall, I think it should be quite a fun week. If you have any comments or questions, or if there's any players you think I left out, feel free to leave comments below. And otherwise, have a nice day, guys.